Hello and welcome to the table. I'm your host, Team Wolf, and today we are going to be doing a top 10 video for Ravnica Remastered for your Commander decks. What are the 10 best cards coming out of this set for your Commander decks? Well, that is the question that we are going to be answering in this video. Now, in the last video, I was talking about how I was going to be doing a pre-release guide for Ravnica Remastered. Well, here's the thing. I thought that pre-release weekend was the weekend of the video that I put out, so I was totally like, I did it wrong. And then I was like, wait, it's this weekend. But wait, I want to get this video out, and now I'm in a super big time crunch, and now I can't put out videos by certain dates, and I'm screwed. And I just decided to not do the pre-release guide video and do this one instead, because I want to do this one more, and more people will probably watch it in the long run. And it's just, maybe. I don't know. I want to do this video more. Anyways, with all that aside, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It's completely free, you won't regret it. And let's get into the top 10 with 2 honorable mentions, because competitive EDH is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about casual EDH, casual commander. And these 2 cards aren't really played in competitive, or in casual commander, because they're a bit busted, but I still want to mention them, so that's what I'm going to do. Starting off with Teferi Time Raveler, the less busted of the 2 cards I'm going to be talking about. Teferi Time Raveler is a 1 white-blue planeswalker that starts off with 4 loyalty for 3 mana, and it has a static ability, saying each opponent cannot cast spells during any turn that's not theirs. They can only cast spells at sorcery speed, which is pretty busted because it shuts off all your opponents from interacting with anybody on a turn that's not their own, and you can still do it. You can still counterspell. You can still play instant speed, destroy stuff. And +1, the +1 on Teferi says, until your next turn, you can cast a sorcery spell as though it were an instant. So you can cast something like a board wipe at instant speed, which completely screws over your opponent. But hey, it's fine, because Teferi's fine. And then there's the -3, which says bounce one of your opponent's artifacts, enchantments, or creatures back to your hand, and you get to draw a card. So you can set one of your opponents back from doing a big stupid combo. This card's fine. It's fine. And then after that, we have Karn, the Great Creator, a 4-mana planeswalker that starts off with 5 loyalty and also has a static ability. You may be seeing a little pattern here. It says opponents no activating abilities of artifacts that they control. Your opponents cannot activate abilities of artifacts they control. So, you have that Soul Ring, right? You love Soul Ring. You love tapping it for 2 mana. You can't tap it for 2 mana anymore, because Karn, you're number 1. Karn likes to call you number 1. If you get that joke, I hope that you laughed a little bit. But, the +1 on Karn says, until your next turn, you can thinking the wrong card. The +1 says, until your next turn, target non-creature artifact you control becomes a creature, and its power and toughness are each equal to the card's mana value. So, you have a 4-mana artifact that's not a creature, you can +1 Karn, and it's now a 4/4 until your next turn. Pretty sweet. The -2 says, you can get any artifact you want from your sideboard, or an artifact in your exile zone that's face up into your hand. So, an artifact or a card that's in your hand. The thing that matters more is you can get an artifact from your sideboard into your hand. In certain decks, you can do little combos where you can play this one artifact that basically says all your opponent's stuff is artifacts. Karn makes your opponents not able to activate ability stuff. Basically, it locks your opponents out from doing anything, and it's colorless, so it can be run in every deck. It's a bit busted. But anyways, getting into the top 10, we have Supreme Verdict. A board wipe. For 1 double white and a blue. Okay, seems fine. Also, it can't be countered. Forgot to mention that. So yeah, you know how Teferi can cast stuff at instant speed that are sorceries like this board wipe? Well, you can cast an uncounterable board wipe at instant speed. It's cool. I feel like this card is busted. I mean, it's a 4-mana, hey, your opponents just wipe out all of their crap, and they can't really interact with this card. They can't counter it. They can bounce back to your hand with certain specific stuff, but for the most part, it's a 4-mana, set your opponents back and yourself back to a point, to ground zero, but you get rid of your opponent's stupid combos, and you love to do that. Now, getting into number 9, we have Liliana Dreadhorde General, a 4 and double black planeswalker that has 6 loyalty and that says it's also got a static ability. When a creature you control dies, you get to draw a card. So, Aristocrat decks, good for you! You got the Queen of Aristocratic BSery back, and now she's gonna be cheaper. Gotta love that. The +1 makes a 2/2 zombie that can be sack fodder and can draw you a card because of her own ability. That's fair. The -4 says each player sacrifices 2 creatures, so you get to draw 2 cards, and you can kind of mess up your opponent's game plan. If they aren't going super wide and they're kind of going really tall, they only have a few creatures, you can get rid of 2 of those big creatures. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And the -9 says you win the game. Not exactly, but pretty much. What the -9 says that each opponent chooses 1 card that they control of each permanent type, so like 1 land, 1 creature, 1 artifact, etc. And they sacrifice everything else. So the main thing that matters is your opponents only have 1 land left. And you get to keep everything on your board, by the way. So you win the game. And then, coming in at number 8, we have Crypt Gast, a 3 and a black 2/2 creature spirit that has Extort. So whenever you cast a spell, you can play a black or you can pay a black or a white to drain each of your opponents for 1, and you gain life equal to the amount of life lost this way. So in Commander, each opponent loses 1, you gain 3 whenever you cast a spell. That's pretty good. There's something else, because obviously that's not the reason why this is above Liliana. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional black to your mana pool. So, Liliana, granted, is a more powerful card than Crypt Gast, but Crypt Gast is more played. And in any deck that has black and white, you play this card. Because you know how green loves to do double mana, triple mana BS? This card says, hey, black gets to do that. So yeah, it's very busted. Now, coming in at number 7, I'm not exactly sure how to explain this card. Simply put, Cloudstone Curio. It's a 3 mana artifact. That's very important in ETB and Blink style Matters decks. Because it's a very good infinite combo piece. It's a very good combo piece in those decks. I'm not going to explain it. I don't want to edit this. But effectively, what Cloudstone Curio does is in Blink decks and ETB Matters decks, with certain cards, you can bounce stuff back to your hand and then replay the thing and then bounce the thing back to your hand and then replay a thing and bounce the thing back to your hand and then replay a thing. You can effectively make these infinite loops where you bounce like 2 stuff that can untap lands or draw you cards or untap your stuff or give things haste or give stuff additional power. You can just loop it forever with Cloudstone Curio. And, oh, by the way, this is a colorless artifact, so any kind of style or mix or combination of colors for Blink and ETB Matters decks can run this card. So yeah, this card is $20+, and I'm very glad to see it getting reprinted because eventually I'm probably going to build that kind of a deck, so I'm very glad to see it reprinted for that reason. This is the reason why it's number 7. Now, coming in at number 6, we have Life from the Loam, which is a 1 and a green sorcery that says return 3 lands from your graveyard to your hand. Oh, don't worry, there's more to it than that. There's more reason why it's at number 6 than just returning 3 lands. It has Dredge 3, which if you haven't been playing Magic the Gathering very long, you probably don't know what Dredge is. It's one of the most busted mechanics to ever exist in the history of Magic the Gathering, and I wish it didn't exist. So what does Dredge do? Well, if you draw a card at the start of your turn, you may instead mill 3 cards and return this card from your graveyard to your hand. So, we all know graveyard decks. They exist, and there are tons of them. One of those, very new, being the Micro Tyrant, which is a very busted deck. And there are plenty of decks that care about lands being in the graveyard and returning them, like Soul of Windgrace, or just other decks like Mondrak that care about stuff being in the graveyard and amount of things being in the graveyard to do stupid BS shenanigans and that kind of stuff. This card says, hey, I'm going to fuel that combo for free every single turn. Yeah. It's just a bit good. It's just a bit busted. God, this card's so good. Yeah. Dredge is very good, and it's the reason why Light from the Loam is one of the most busted cards on this entire list. It's not one of the most played because it's very specific in the amount of decks that it can be played in. Now, these next, all the rest of the cards on this list can be played in most every single deck, especially this next one. Farseek, number 5, top 5. We got Farseek, an uncommon. A 1 and a green sorcery uncommon. Yes, I'm not joking. It says search your library for a swamp, mountain, island, plains, land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So, we all know how good Nature's Lore and 3 visits are for ramping you early in the game. This card says, hey, I'm going to do that, but the land comes into play tapped. But it's not just restricted to forest. And, oh, by the way, doesn't just have to be a basic. It can be a non-basic if you want to, like a fetch land. Wait, no, that doesn't work. Like the original dual lands. So this card's pretty good. And coming in at number 4, we have Guardian Project. An actual card that has a lot of text on it. It's a 3 and a green enchantment that says, when a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature that's on the battlefield under your control, you get to draw a card. So we all know how Commander works, right? You can only have one copy of each, like, card in your deck that's not a basic land. So what this means is you can only have one copy of each creature in your deck. So, Guardian Project says, hey, 4 mana, whenever a creature enters under your control that's not a token, you get to draw a card. Now we all know green. They love to play creatures. This card says, hey, when you do that, you get to draw cards. And green! Yeah, Guardian Project is very busted. Now, coming in at number 3, this card maybe isn't as good as Guardian Project, but it's, in my opinion, way more played, and to a point better. Let me explain. Rhythm of the Wilds. Another uncommon. Gotta love it. It's a 1 red-green enchantment that says creatures you control can't be countered. That already in and of itself is pretty good against a lot of decks, like blue. And it also says non-token creatures you control have Riot. So what this means is whenever a creature with Riot enters the battlefield under your control, you can have it do one of 2 things. Either it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, which, yeah, that can matter. Or, more importantly, it can get haste. Now, we all know green loves to play big creatures. Red also has big creatures, like dinosaurs, dragons, which mixes with green. This is a green and red enchantment. You see where I'm going. All of those stupid dragons and dinosaurs have haste and can't be countered. For 3 mana. What is this? Yeah, this card's very busted. And coming in at number 2, we have Cyclonic Grip. You know that I had to mention this card. It's a 1 and blue instant that bounces a spell, an opponent's non-land card. One of your opponent's non-land cards. Or you can pay 6 in a blue to bounce all of your opponent's non-land cards to their hand. Return everything that they control that is not a land to their hand. You get to keep all your stuff. It's a board wipe in blue. Now granted, it's not technically a board wipe, it's a board reset. But it's still very busted. And yeah, this card's very good. And yeah, what? Yeah, Cyclonic Grip is very good. But what's better than Cyclonic Grip? Well, if you already didn't get it, or if you're just really new to the game, number 1, the Shock Lands. 10 lands, 1 for each dual color combination of cards for each of the guilds, Ravnica, and they're lands that have one of each of their respective color combinations, basic land types, and they tap for each of those colors, and they can enter untapped if you pay 2 life, otherwise they enter untapped. They're like the original dual lands, but a little less powerful, because granted, the original dual lands were really, really busted. And, yeah. Shocklands, very good. there are 10 of them. Technically, I could have been scummy and filled up the whole top 10 with these cards, because these cards are not only played in Commander, not only CEDH, Competitive Commander, not only Legacy, not only Modern, but also Vintage. And Pioneer? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how Pioneer works. But so many formats play these cards, this had to be number one. Because, I mean, granted, of all the cards in this set, of everything in this set, this is the reason why you're probably going to get this set. Because of the shock lands. Now, granted, there are stuff like Deathrite Shaman, which I wasn't on this list. If you think it should be, leave a comment down below and rage at me about it. Cyclonic Rift, all of the cards I listed prior to it, Rhythm of the Wilds, all the Planeswalkers with static abilities, Guardian Project, Cloudstone Curio, Farseek, etc., etc. Pretty busted cards, but the Shocklands are just so good, not only in Commander, but in every other format, and anything that brings down the price of them is awesome. So, with all that aside, that is the top 10 with honorable mentions from Ravnica Remastered. Hope that you enjoyed. Once again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, it's completely free, you won't regret it, and for all that aside, see you next time, everybody.